Well, that has not taken long at all. I just chucked the third rod out and I just said to Joe, I'm gonna knock up a few more bags to get prepped, then find a spot and put some bait out. And before I've had a chance to do any of that, the second rod that I cast out has gone. I believe this is on a yellow Northern Mini that I've had in the halo. So that's good information straight away, because I got a yellow, I think 2 yellows and a pink out. The first rod that I put out was a pink and the yellow's gone. Might be the difference, it might not. But to get a bite so early on into the session is definitely a confidence boost and just shows how good solids can be. You know, I wouldn't, if I was just finding a spot, putting normal rigs out over the top, I wouldn't have had a rod in the water yet. And also if I was just chucking singles about, they don't have that same level of attraction as a solid bag does. Without a doubt, it is the best tactic for getting quick bites. And yeah, hopefully we can get this in and get some more. Am I going to manage this without getting a boot full? That is the question. Yes! God, that wind is that strong that it was like playing it against the flow. That is mad. Happy days, off the mark. Very early on. There we go. Right, I just whipped another bag up and chucked it out to the same area that I've had that bite on. Yeah, in an ideal world, I'd have had a load of bags tied, and that was my plan. But that fish interrupted what was going to be my little prep session. But it's not a bad interruption. I'm just trying to sink the line now. This wind is giving a massive, massive bow in the line. But the good thing with solid bag fishing is that even if it is windy, you don't necessarily have to be overly accurate, because it's just a parcel of bait, high attraction. If it's in the zone where the fish are, they'll find it. and it will give you a really good chance of a quick bite, as that one's proved. So I'll finish sinking the line. We'll get him out to show you. Well, couldn't ask for a much better start to the session than that. An absolutely pristine, smidge over 20 pound common. Yeah, we'd got out of the car, saw a few fish show, got in the peg that commanded that water. 3 solids out there, and it was probably 15 minutes after this rod went in the water that it ripped off. And we're off the mark. Hopefully more to come, but I need to tie some bags up and get all prepped. My unhooking mat's going to take off. I'll have to do it like this. That serves me right. Happy days. So Lyons Drove is a day ticket lake. It's a big expanse of water, but it's got quite a few fish in. I think there's 600 or 700 carp in here in about, I don't know, maybe 26, 28 acres. So it's a big lake, but lots of carp. And, you know, in a similar way to venues like Berners Hall, pretty much all of the linear lakes, Todber Manor, those types of day ticket venues with lots of fish, I think it's really important to be super prepared, which is why I've just made sure I've got a number of bags tied up, because if you get these fish turn up on you, you could put quite a lot of fish together in a short space of time. And I always think on venues like this, it's very difficult to target the bigger fish. If you catch more, you're going to get a bigger one. That's my perception of it, and that's how I like to fish on these venues. I like to fish for bites, and I like to make sure that I'm prepared so that when they turn up, I can make the absolute most of it. So those bags are tied. I've still got 3 rods in the water, and they've sort of been dotted out in front of me, spread out. Gives me enough room to work in between them with a marker rod, find a spot and introduce some bait, and then we'll see whether fishing on the bait or on the bags away from the bait is going to be the best tactic for this session. So yeah, prepped up, going to find a spot, get some bait out and take it from there. Well, just had another bite. This wind has swung right round. Yeah, I've had another bite, and there's all sorts of shelves and drop-offs out here, and that just got caught around one. Look, you can see the level of clay where that lead has just got wedged in the back of a shelf. And yeah, unfortunately, I've been cut off on the hook link. Yeah, pretty savage. We'll get it back out there and try and do better. So I am ready finally to put some bait out. I have been a little bit waylaid by the wind totally swinging round to come straight into my bivvy, and then a load of rain to hit me right in the face. So that put a little bit of a pause on proceedings, but I've got a mix knocked up and I'm ready to go. It's quite a pellet heavy mix with some Pro Stim Liver 10s and 15s mixed in. Nothing bright in the mix, so no corn, nothing like that, which means that when I use bright hook baits in my solid bags, that is the main thing that they're seeing when they're coming into the swim. So loads of attraction with the pellets and the boilies, but the eye-catching sort of nature of like a yellow one or a pink one on a spot where there's nothing else that's bright, I hope will get me quicker bites. I've still got my 3 rods that are just dotted about on the bags that are giving me a couple of bites already, and I'll probably still have a couple more rechucks on them before I put anything on the bait. But first thing I need to do is get the bait out. I'm probably going to start with 25-30 spoms and see how it goes from there. Well, managed to get my bait out. It is still very windy, still very wet, but I put the bait out. I actually re-chucked one of my rods, not onto the bait, so I still haven't got a rod on the bait, but I just re-chucked one of the solid bags, freshened it up, and this is the rod that's gone 10 minutes after I've done that. And that's a really important thing when you're solid bag fishing, especially sort of spring, summer, autumn anyway, is quite often a rechuck will just refreshen things and get you a bite. And that's exactly what this has done. So yeah, very, very pleased to be playing another one. Managed to get him in. He was quite far out where I had the bite. Quite a long way past where my baited area is going to be. So I'm just going to give that area just a little bit of time to establish itself before I put rods on it, especially whilst I'm getting bites. That's a nice scale one. Thank you very much. Ah, check that lovely scaly one out. Real nice fish on a bag at quite considerable range. The wind's swung round in my face, which is a lot better than the crosswind that we were having for range. It sort of takes but you don't get the bow that you do in the crosswind. And yeah, it proves that they're working. There's a few things that I do with my solid bags differently in really deep water like we've got out here. It's sort of between 30 and 40 feet out where I'm fishing. So there's a few little different things that I do, and we'll probably go through those in the morning. Right now, we'll put this back, see how the rest of the evening and the night goes. Absolute magic. Well, it is almost my bedtime actually. I've had dinner. I was just thinking about getting into the bag, and my one rod that I left away from the bait, I put two rods out onto the bait, and my one that I've left off of it has gone, and he's just down at my feet now. But yeah, makes me feel like maybe I'll take another rod off of the bait. There's a chunky looking common. There we go, in first time. Proper dumpy common. Happy days. Oh. Really dumpy looking thing. He's a funny one. Proper Quasimodo. Cool. Let's have a look at him straight away. Well, that is probably one that only a mother could love. Certainly you'd call it a character, but it's another bite, and it's another bite on just a solid, nothing off of the bait yet. I think I've spoken quite a bit about fishing on the bait and off the bait, and we'll probably go into a little bit more of the details about why I'm doing that and my experience of doing that tomorrow. It's definitely something that I think a lot of people could put into their fishing and put more fish on the bank. So we'll see what the night brings and talk tactics, rigs, bait, everything tomorrow. Oh dear. So, the plan for the day is to get back on the solids long. Last night I managed a couple off of the bait, including the biggest of the session so far, a really nice clean 26 pound 14 ounce mirror that I was really pleased with. But since getting up this morning, I redid my one rod that was just on a single solid, and it went within like 15 minutes with a small common. So I've also seen quite a lot of fish long, like I'm much further past my bait, probably, you know, sort of 150, 160 out. So what I think they've done, this lake is deeper on this side and it's a bit shallower on that side. When I say shallow, it's still 20 foot deep, but it's more like 30 foot, between 30 and 40 foot over this side. So I just think that maybe they're spending the night times closer in to this side, and during the day they may be pushing out over that way. So last night they came into the deepest water, had a bit of a feed on my bait. I caught a few fish, but I think now it's going to be a case of regular rechucking to try and make those bites come. I haven't had a bite more than an hour after chucking in, so that makes me think I'm going to be rechucking every hour and a half just to eke out that sort of window of opportunity and then refresh the bags. So that's the plan of attack. Let's hope it works. So I need to prep up a few more bags, and as I do so, I'm just going to go through the mix that I've got, the hook bait that I'm using, all the things that I put together that I think make a difference in my solid bag fishing. So firstly, I'm going to go through the mix. I really like the various different solid bag mixes that ccmoore do, particularly the oily bag mix. When I was using the tuna, I really like the tuna bag mix, but I've recently been using the Pro Stim liver. I say recently, last couple of years I've been using it, and to complement the boilies that I'm using, I thought I might as well use the Pro Stim liver base mix, and I really like it because it's quite powder heavy, and I'll go on to explain why I think that that's good, particularly in the situation that we're in, which is deep water. So firstly, I'm going to put a small pinch into the bottom of the bag, and then I'm going to drop my rig, which is just 4-inch coated braid, very standard solid bag rig with a Northern Mini on it. Drop that into the bottom of the bag and then cover with another small layer of pellets. Now you don't want to be building that up too high before you drop the lead in. Reason being is you want it to be weight forward, so you want that lead towards the front of the bag. I'll position the lead nice and centrally in the bag, and then I'm just going to fill with bag mix more or less to the sort of top of where the lead is. At this point, I am adding, now this is, you can do this summer and autumn really, and it works particularly well on deep lakes. You can do it anywhere, but particularly well on deep lakes. So I'm adding oil and I'm literally just pouring it in. You can use a syringe. I don't use a syringe because I end up losing them. But yeah, I've just poured that in. And so what I was saying earlier about having the powder in the mix and having it powder heavy, what the oil does is it obviously plips up and rises to the surface, and what it also does when you've got powders in the mix is it brings those up through the water column. Now oil is by its nature not water soluble, so it will go up through the layers and then onto the surface and float away. But as it's dragging it up through the layers, it's also bringing those powders with it that will come off of it through the layers, emitting that sort of food signal to like through the water column, which you don't necessarily get if you just use an oil on its own with pellets, because the pellets stay on the bottom, the oil goes up to the surface. So I feel like if you're using oil, it's very beneficial to have powder in the mix. And obviously with the Pro Stim liver, you've got those lovely liver powders in that mix as well. So I think it makes a big difference when you're fishing anywhere that's sort of 10 foot plus, but you know, where I'm out 30 foot of water, it is making a big difference. So once I've done that, I'm just going to put another small layer of pellets on top. And obviously I'm using the rapid loader, so it's literally just a case of giving it a twist 360 degrees, licking around the top, pushing it over. That's the bag effectively tied, just folding in the corners to make sure it's nice and aerodynamic. I just lick my finger and stick them over each side, so you've got a nice aerodynamic shape like that. That's gonna fly out there and be a really neat parcel packed with attraction. And people say that solid bags are like a one bite tactic. I feel like you get a few more bites at the cherry than that. We've done a little bit of underwater fish filming with them, and they will cut. It won't just be one mouthful, it'll be a couple, so you get a few bites at the cherry. But if they come in a couple of times, they will eventually ruin it, because they'll suck in the bait, and if they haven't sucked your hook bait in, you're done. And that is why recasting solid bags regularly is so effective, and more effective than if you just chuck them out and leave them to sit there. So yeah, on this session I'm doing hour and a half, 2 hour rechucks, and so far so good. Hey. Well, it was definitely worth chucking them out further. I mean, first things first, it was closer to where we could see the fish showing. So if you're not on them, you're not going to catch them. And I do think that they've pushed further out for the daytime. And yeah, where I've only got 24 hours, I won't find out if that theory is definitely correct by fishing tonight. But you know, if it was a longer session, I'd be, come the evening time, dropping those rods closer in again, topping the spot back up. And it's all about working the swim and trying to piece things together and doing things to make something happen. And that's how you catch more fish than anyone else on the lake that you're fishing. That's what I always try and do, and so far on this session it's working. I'm in on a pink one again. That seems to be the one today, the pink. And he's in. Happy day. Almost out. Almost in and out. Jesus. Well, there we go. Another scale perfect common. We'll send him back into the waves. Yeah, get the rod back out there. Oh, I've just got a proper booty. Right, so these are the baits that are going into my mix for this particular session. It's quite pellet heavy. That's mainly because of the venue that we're fishing. You know, it's not an like old established venue. The fish have been reared on pellets. They've only been fished for a year or so. So venues like that, you know, it makes absolute sense to be feeding effectively what they see as natural food. So I've got 6mm Bellichan pellets, which are really, really attractive. I've also got 14mm halibut pellets. I've been using 14mm halibut pellets in a lot of my mixes over the last few years, and I just feel like they offer so much attraction, and they also break down over a longer period of time than smaller pellets. So I do always like, if I'm using a sort of pellet mix or I'm putting pellets into my mix, it will be with the addition of 14 millers, not just those small ones that I feel like the fish could at times get preoccupied on, and there'll always be a couple of these left in the swim working for you. And then I've also got 10 mil pro stim liver and 15 mil pro stim liver. Like, since the pro stim's come out, I've absolutely loved it. Literally just in a shelf life, literally the best shelf life bait I've ever used, and the only one that I actually feel confident in using as a shelf life. I've always been a freezer bait fan. So that's it. It's quite a clean mix. I don't add any liquid to it, mainly because you've got there's sort of two reasons really. You've got the breakdown of the pellets. As the pellets are breaking down, they're releasing loads and loads of attraction on their own. So I feel like even more liquid would just confuse the situation. And also, because I'm using solid bags over the top, they are going to be the most attractive thing in the swim. Not only have they got that little like topper of a bright northern mini, and for the fish to sort of visually home in on, but there's also more attraction there in the sort of open nature of the smaller pellets and the powders and the oil that I put on them as well. So in theory, the fish sort of sense the overall area of the spot and then absolutely dive bomb on the solid bags that I'm putting out over the top. That's the plan. Right, well, that is it. My session has come to an end and I have really enjoyed it. No more fish since that second one this morning. And to be honest, I think that's just because the fish have pushed further and further over, sort of over the other side of the middle towards the far side off the back of this wind. I think if I was staying, I'd be moving around there and doing some nice wind assisted chucks off the back of the wind. But I've had a brilliant session. I hope you've learnt a thing or two, and hopefully you can put some of my solid bag edges into your own fishing and catch some fish with them.